Greetings from the Garden of Eden. It is a glorious day. I am so grateful to be alive. I have been fully committed to radiant, healthy, sustainable living for 15 years now. And I wanted to take these moments to talk about one of the things that over this amount of time that I have found to be one of the most important aspects to healthy and sustainable living, and that's wildcrafting. As far as sustainability goes, wildcrafting is the most sustainable, and the reason why is because when you're wildcrafting, you are cultivating environments for native wild plants to grow. When you're growing a garden or a farm, pretty much everything that you're growing is not a native plant. It's actually a very highly cultivated, hybridized plant. Even in the case of heirloom plants, almost all of these plants that are grown in a garden, fruits, vegetables, and whatnot, are not existing in nature. They don't exist in nature. You don't go out in nature and find tomato plants. You don't go out in nature and find, watermelons. You don't go out in nature and find these types of plants growing. You might find, certain wild variations, but not like the crops that are grown in gardens or farms. These are very hybridized plants, and what that basically means is you've got a lot of maintenance. You got a lot of time, energy, expense, cost that goes into cultivating these foods. So here in the Garden of Eden, we've been growing mass amounts of food for many years now, and we do it extremely sustainably. Even with growing things like melons and tomatoes and things of that nature. But it still takes a lot of time. We've got to prepare soil, we've got to put irrigation, we've potentially got to deal with diseases and or bugs of some kind. When you're talking about native wildcrafted plants, they really don't need to be watered. They don't need to be seeded, propagated, or planted. Diseases and or bugs are really almost never a problem. And a lot of times they're growing year-round. So it's way more sustainable to either one, be doing wild foraging, and or two, be purposely cultivating wild plants. So here in the Garden of Eden, we do both of those things. And if you can see behind me here, it might look not like much. It might look kind of like weeds and things of that nature. And in a way, it is. But the really profound truth is that pretty much all this plants that you see behind me are actually edible foods. And not only are they edible foods, but they're extremely healthy foods. Now, they may not be considered the most delicious foods for, the modern Western palate, but as far as nutrition goes, they're super healthy. They're way healthier than any of that crap you're going to get at a health food store. It's even way healthier than any of that crap you're going to get online, that's packaged as a superfood. These are all superfoods, real superfoods, and they're fresh, living, wild-crafted superfoods of the highest level of sustainability. There's no packaging, there's no processing, there's no taxation, right? This is all wild-crafted right here in the Garden of Eden. So all these foods that you see around here are actually all edible, and some of them are things that we have purposely planted, various types of greens, certain herbs and things of that nature, but a lot of them are actually wild plants that grow natively in this area, and we are just simply cultivating those foods. So if we want to cultivate those foods, all we really do is we identify these various plants, and I'll do a whole video on identifying these various wild cultivated plants. But ultimately you're identifying those, and then you're just sort of weeding out some of the plants that maybe are not as valuable or that you don't want, giving space for those native plants to grow and thrive and flourish, and those plants grow, thrive, and flourish. You don't need to fertilize them, you don't need to water them, you don't need to worry about pests or diseases or any of those things, and they're super healthy. The healthiest foods you're ever going to eat are going to be wild, fresh foods. And that's what wildcrafted native foods are. So I really wanted to take some time and discuss these things, not necessarily specifics, but just the general concept that if you care about health, if you care about sustainability, the answer is not in a health food store. The answer is not in supplements. The answer is in wildcrafted foods. And wherever you live, it doesn't matter where you are, wherever you live, there are native foods. There are wildcrafted foods that live in that area, and they are superfoods. And you don't even have to have your own land. You don't even have to have a garden like we have. You can literally go out into any wild environment and you can hand forage, hand harvest these plants. You can eat them fresh, you can dry them, you can preserve them, you can do all sorts of different things. You can make medicines out of them. But this is where you get your nutrients, and it doesn't cost anything. Not only is it healthy, not only is it sustainable, but it literally costs nothing. When you're growing and cultivating even your own garden, there's all sorts of time and expense and cost that goes into that, which really doesn't exist with wildcrafting. So if you truly care about health, if you truly care about sustainability, wildcrafting is where it's at. Bless.